Hello, everyone, and welcome to another special episode of the Conversations with Coaches podcast. Another one of the lessons, mini-sodes is kind of what I'm calling them. I still like calling them that. I think that works because it's really all about what I'm getting to learn about life and living and business and growing and changing and evolving in my personal life, my professional life, all of the above. Yada, yada, yada. It's fantastic. I feel like I always intro these episodes by gushing about how much I love this podcast and the coaches I get to talk to. But you know what? I'm just going to be me. I'm going to keep on gushing. So today, I want to talk very briefly about I guess you can call it a false dichotomy. It's false. I'm making the dichotomy. I'm comparing two things that I don't necessarily think are on the opposite ends of any spectrum. But I might be creating the problem and then solving it for myself all here in a few minutes. But I say problem. It's really just an exercise for my brain and for my heart. And it's something that comes up, maybe not necessarily quite in these words, but it comes up conceptually a lot during my interviews with coaches. Talking about, I'll use the terms authenticity and authority. Authenticity being a term for basically showing up authentically in all the work that you do, everything that you say, basically being yourself, being present. But there's also a strong note of not just availability, but vulnerability, which is another really big word in professional circles, vulnerability. Who'd have thought even 20 years ago that the concept of vulnerability would be professionally viable and in fact very important, spoken about in profound ways and instituted on a corporate level. Anyway, that's a discussion for another time. But authenticity, vulnerability, availability, empathy, these things are all just core. They're so important to everything that we do as coaches, as just people in our lives. But then as coaches too, as many of you own your own business, entrepreneurs, but in a position of leadership, you also have to, I'm going to say, balance that with authority. You do need to, quite frankly, but of course want to be seen as an authority in your niche, in your industry, amongst your team, basically so that you, as almost like a function of your ability to lead, you know what we're supposed to be doing, why we're doing it, you can articulate it, you can help the team grow and go together. And I put these two concepts on opposing sides of a scale just to basically draw attention to how actually close together they are, how related they are, as opposed to towards the opposite ends of any kind of spectrum. I find authenticity and authority to be very closely tied, at least in the way that I think of it myself. And I feel like I have a lot of people I talk to think of it in the same way. That, quite frankly, at least for me, and at least in some circumstances, I don't want to speak authoritatively on this. I don't want to speak exclusively on this, like this is how it is. But I find that a lot of leaders' authority derives from their authenticity, from their ability to show up authentically, to be not just available and have strong leadership attributes and, like a good listener, but also just being vulnerable. Not afraid to not only make mistakes but own up to them and share them and learn with them as a team. I'm just, for one example, it's not even just like owning up to your mistakes. That's not even what I'm thinking of when I'm thinking about authenticity and authority. But it's one really good example of what good leadership looks like. And I find most of the leaders in my life that I allow to lead me, that I truly admire and will go the extra 1,000 miles for, whatever the circumstance, is that their authority and their authenticity are closely tied, if not braided tightly together. I find their accessibility, their agility, their vulnerability, their empathy to be, quite frankly, the fire burning at the heart of their authority for me. And also, obviously, authority comes from other places as well, but different logs on the fire comes from their special knowledge and experience, things that they can do that I can't, that I admire in them. And then, they help me to grow in certain areas. There's all sorts of things that go to it. But I find putting these two ideas on opposite ends of a scale and just watching the way that they move together, kind of like in this little conversation we're having right now, and how they really are a lot closer than I think most of us think they are when we first start to consider it. So I kind of wanted to share that. I was weighing them in my head. It's actually something that I still have written on my whiteboard, just the words authenticity and authority. They're in, I guess, a word cloud. It's not even a place where I put like quotes or inspirations or anything like that, but just kind of like a little word cloud. And they're pretty close in proximity. So I got to thinking about them in comparison and contrast to each other. And just kind of wanted to share some of my thoughts on it, some of the lessons I've gotten, because I mean, even though these words might not be the ones that come up, the concepts of authenticity and authority, I think, are present in every single conversation I've had with a coach. As I'm thinking about it, I really think that's true. So anyway, as I'm being slightly inspired over again as I'm talking with you, just wanted to share that with you. And also, solicit your thoughts if you have any ideas regarding this or something close to it. I know I've had some conversations that have been very much in this neighborhood of where things like vulnerability and leadership come into play. But anyway, thank you for listening to my word cloud ramblings, and I will talk to you again very soon.